All right, let's discuss what I would consider to be the key aspects of managing experiences. Experiences need to be marketed and managed differently than functional goods or symbolic goods and services. And as we think about that, then let's understand what some of the challenges are for developing and managing experiential products. First, experiences are memorable. When the experience perishes upon the stage event's conclusion, the value of the experience lingers in the mind of the individual who was engaged. The key to an experience is the memorable part. For instance, family vacations, or maybe when you got your driver's license, or when you graduated high school, or whatever else the experience might be. Your first experience, your first airplane travel. Experiential marketing requires connecting customers with in a personal, customized, memorable way. Each experience is derived from the interaction of the staged event and the individual's prior state. It is personal. Simply put, no two people will have the same experience. In addition, the experience needs to be interactive. Experiences are individual by definition, since they are the interaction between the staged event and the individual. And of course, then, the individual is the person who controls that. Experiences are less controllable than services because the experiences are an interface between the individual and the event. You can design and manage the event, that is the scenery, the costume, the sounds, the actors, the script, etc., but not the individual experiencing it. The organization puts on the event, but the task is more difficult than providing a service and much more uncontrollable. Pine and Gilmore state that an experience uses services as a stage and goods as a prop to engage a customer and deliver an experience. Do you think that's right? Let me give you a hint. No. Engagement. Entertainment is not the only aspect of the experience. Staging experience is all about entertaining individuals, but it is also about engaging them, immersing them into the experience. Individuals are less price sensitive for experience than for goods and services. And companies must work to experientialize their goods and services. That is, to take their goods and services and turn them into experiential goods and services. Here I have a handful of things to remember when you are developing and managing experiential products. These are things that make experiences a little bit different than marketing services or goods. First, you need to understand the core experience and the benefits, wants, and needs being met. This is always the key to experiential marketing. Remember the NHRA example where I mistakenly thought that the NHRA was selling racing when in fact they were selling speed. And remember the zoo example where the zoologist thought that the zoo experience should be about educating people about the animals. And I suggested that the zoo experience should be about entertaining individuals. And of course, the truth of the matter is perhaps the sweet spot is someplace in between. You need to learn how to promote the experience. That is, whatever that experience is, you need to educate, entertain, thrill, and make sure that people understand what the core experience is all about. That is, what they're going to experience after they arrive. If a person is going to Zion and they do not plan to get out of the car, it'll be an okay day, but it won't be the true Zion experience. To do that, you have to get out of your car and hike. On the other hand, at the Grand Canyon, it's much more of a viewing experience where you get a chance to see an unparalleled view like none other. Maximize the experience. You need to try to figure out the ways that you tie things together to maximize an experience, to get all of the senses involved in the experience. Take the example of the Rainforest Cafe. It's a themed restaurant, but it is a flatly themed restaurant. That is, they have a rainforest concept in there, and they play sounds as if it was raining and in the rainforest, and they play animal sounds that might be in the rainforest. And occasionally they actually have a little shower that comes through the rainforest. But it turns out the experience stops there. The food, the menu, the waiters and waitresses, and everything else is not really tied to the rainforest concept. And as a result, the experience is not maximized. And in fact, I like to suggest that the experience at the Rainforest Cafe is a little bit like having experiential wallpaper, but not the actual experience. Make the experience memorable. Whether you use souvenirs or photo ops or whatever, the key is to make the experience memorable. And I'm going to use the example of the 200-mile-an-hour Volkswagen. I won't give you that story today, but I will be giving you that story in the very near future about the 200-mile-an-hour Volkswagen. Getting old when everybody else is new. The problem with experience is that they wear out rather quickly, especially with your best customers, because they're the ones that experience the staged event the most often. That's a problem. So you need to think of ways to get around that. In the restaurant example, while the restaurant experience tends to stay the same, many restaurants have a seasonal menu where they change the specials depending on the season. And of course, part of that is to create variety in the menu for the regular customers. Now, if you only go to a restaurant 2 or 3 times in your life, and that restaurant is known for sauerbraten, like Carl Rosch's was, then you ought to order the sauerbraten. But if you eat there once a week, maybe you'll get sauerbratened out if you keep eating sauerbraten every weekend. Then also think interactive. Get the customer involved. How can you move the experience from being a passive viewing experience to one in which the customer is involved, immersed, both mentally and physically? Make sure you can meet the expectations that you build. And of course, here I have the example of the MGM Grand. I think we discussed this before. The MGM Grand had a theme park when they first opened. And they had marketed the theme park as an adult Disneyland kind of a theme park. And the truth is, it wasn't. And of course, people visited the theme park, were very disappointed. It didn't meet their expectations, and it didn't take long for the theme park to close and for them to replace that with, in fact, their arena and convention center. The experience gets old over time. Think about Barney when you were a little kid and you loved Barney and you watched Barney all the time. But as you got older and older, Barney got to be less and less fun and entertaining to watch. Same thing happens with movies. You know, when you take your favorite movie, whether it's Groundhog Day or Stripes or The Blues Brothers or Animal House or Caddyshack, or perhaps it's Casablanca. The more often you watch that movie, the less exciting it is every time you watch it. And of course, at some point, it needs to be replaced with something else as your favorite movie. Also, if inflation forces up costs and prices, the experience must be enhanced to maintain the customer's perceived value. Now, the good news about that is that demand is probably not elastic within some relevant range. And so if you're taking your family to Disneyland and you have a $500 budget, the difference between something costing $14 and $16 is probably does not really make any difference, except perhaps for families and seniors. They are the most price sensitive, and as a result, you need to think about ways to create bundling pricing so that they feel like they are getting a deal. You also need to minimize any detracting or unpleasant factors. For example, waiting in lines and paying more than once. My example of paying more than once is that when the Disney on Ice used to come to the Thomas and Mack Arena, and we had gotten into a situation where we always buried the parking price. It was always $5 per car to park at the Thomas and Mack. We ended up burying that price in the tickets, so that when you bought the ticket, you'd already paid for the parking, and then we could get you into the parking spaces quicker, and you didn't have to pay before you entered the building. Disney refused to do that, and so what would happen at a Disney on Ice event is that cars would come into the Thomas and Mack. There would be a backup getting them in because every car had to pay $5 to get into the parking lot. That created an unpleasant factor because people had already paid before they even got to the start of the experience. Other examples of detracting or unpleasant factors, like I said, are things like waiting lines. And the trick then is, think about the fast pass that they use at Disneyland. That is all designed to minimize your time waiting in line, especially with children. Distribution can either enhance or detract from the experience. The distribution elements include the venue, include the time of day, and include the location of the staged event. In summary, you cannot design, market, or manage experiences like products or like products that are services or goods. Managing experiential products is an essential skill for the new generation of marketers. That's you.